Both Tim and I want to thank you for providing us with the opportunity to tell you about the mounting of this amazing artifact. As any of you who have worked with oversized artifacts or ones that are of unusual shape will know, there are many unexpected challenges. With this artifact, challenges seem to appear at every step, from procuring the specific materials necessary to the communication with the museum and all of their expectations. The initial concept was easy and straightforward, or so it seemed at the beginning. This painted banner or scroll was created in the 18th century for a Buddhist monastery in Tibet. The deities depicted in this banner are invisible, meaning that they are shown in symbolic rather than human form. This image of the banner on the floor of an unused gallery at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts was my first time seeing the banner. The center section is vibrantly painted with opaque watercolor on prime cotton fabric, depicting deities. Each of the 8 deities is framed in on a colorful lotus flower base, surrounded by clusters of attributes, garments, ceremonial implements, and jewelry, all associated with each respective deities. Some of these attributes were pretty gory, and counting the skulls was not helpful. All 8 painted deities were surrounded by several bands of colored silk damask. Along the lower edge is a double layered frill created with damask silk fabrics. Each layer is pleated regularly in the same direction across the lower edge. This detail helps to highlight the complicated structure of this artifact. The goal of the mounting was for the textile to hang along the gallery wall. That included a corner, thus creating an environment in which the viewer could enter the space and be surrounded by the textile and its painted imagery. In addition, the curator also wanted to hang the banner at the height to replicate how it is believed to have been hung historically on the upper walls near the ceiling of a sacred shrine or monastery courtyard on special occasions. Keep this in mind later. The concept for the installation was to have the banner rolled face in onto 2 large diameter tubes, like a scroll. The beauty of the design of this system was that with the face of the textile rolled in, this then allowed for the unrolling directly onto the wall. Many textiles, some with or without Velcro, are rolled faced out, which in turn requires added manipulation prior to their installation. Additionally, this approach allowed for easy shipping of the banner back to the VMFA for installation. The magnetic slat produced by Small Corp Inc., seen here, is my favorite magnetic hanging support. I feel it is a true alternative for Velcro. It consists of an aluminum L with fastened countersunk disc-shaped N42 neodymium magnets evenly spaced. The lip of the aluminum L is what fully supports the weight of the artifact, while the magnets ensure the steel on the artifact stays vertical. However, for this exhibit, some modifications were needed. The first modification to the standard magnetic slat was the creation of the curve section for the corner. The design can be seen here. It consists of 2 parts. One, a vertical curved section made out of wood that the textile could rest against. And the second is the aluminum L that was carefully bent to match the shape of the wooden corner piece. The second modification needed turned out to be the most challenging one, finding a continuous steel strip, i.e. 39 feet long, but one that would also bend or flex sufficiently for both the rolling and curvature of the corner while returning to its flat form once unrolled on the wall. The magnetic slat includes a powder-coated 22 gauge steel strip that slides into a sleeve attached to the upper edge of the artifact. While under normal circumstances, this works wonderfully. For this case, the included strip would not work because it was too stiff to be rolled, and also it is not available in the continuous lengths needed. After much research and testing, a variety of commercially available products like corseting materials and the strapping products used for packing and shipping, as seen here, a viable material was located from a steel fabrication shop, which makes hot air ductwork for heating systems. The 1-inch wide 26 gauge steel strip used for joining the different sections of the ductwork together comes in 1,000-foot rolls. After degreasing, the strip was lacquered with several coats of alkaloid B48N. Another unexpected challenge in finding materials turned out to be the large diameter tubes. Eventually, tubes were located, but they were only 48 inches in height. This was one of those moments where we were thankful that while the banner was so long, it was not very tall. The tubes normally used for shipping fluorescent tubes were perfect for our needs. However, they were not archival, thus were covered with Marvel Seal. The diameter of the tubes was of such great importance due to the fragile nature of the paint, as well as the bulk of layers created from the multi-layer nature of the banner. With all of the necessary materials procured, it was finally time for creating and attaching the sleeve. Tyvek was used for both the sleeve and backing. As you can imagine, finding the wall space in any studio to prepare a 39-foot hanging was a challenge. Temporary walls, cardboard walls were constructed and lined the studio space. In these images, we're folding the Tyvek to the correct width and sliding the steel into the stitched sleeve. Once the Tyvek was prepared, there was still the matter of attaching it to the textile before stitching could begin. This was all done in the same manner you would be familiar with when attaching Velcro. The final detail was to ensure the banner was supported while it was rolled vertically onto the tubes. Unlike paper that is inherently stiff and has the structure to support itself, textiles, even painted ones, do not. The magnetic system itself came in handy for this last challenge. Fabric tabs with magnets were secured to the inside of the upper edge of the tubes, which allowed the textile to remain vertical and securely in place while it is rolled in its rolled position. With each rotation, one or two of these tabs were flipped over, allowing the magnets to attach the steel strip in the Tyvek sleeve. Here's some images of the tube covering and preparation. It was quickly found that the initial end of the banner being rolled had to be well attached to the tube from the beginning. Otherwise, things quickly started to unravel. A large countersunk magnet with a large diameter fender washer was used to strengthen this initial bond. Due to the length of the textile, strips of Tyvek were secured to the steel in several locations along its length. This helped to reduce the tendency of the steel sliding within the pocket, and also allowed for minor adjustments to the steel to ensure proper placement during the final installation. And of course, there was a tight schedule. Nancy Pollock, the painting conservator for the project, came to my studio to complete her work. Here she is while I am sewing. While I was working away in my studio in upstate New York, getting the mount ready. The museum was busy finding a way in which the mounted banner could be installed for the exhibit. Now, Tim will continue with the story.
One of the great things about working as an art handler at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts is that we're constantly thrown unique challenges. The great thing about this project was the level of precise information communicated between Gwen and our team. Remember the monastery photo? The curator wanted the banner to be hung 10 feet up on the wall, as it was believed to have been hung traditionally. How could a 39-foot textile be mounted 10 feet in the air? Could it be mounted using scissor lifts? No one was happy with the options for the available equipment to be used for this elevated height. After further discussions, it was determined that instead of 10 feet high, it'd be better to mount a height only 2 feet made all the difference. Wheeled carts and ladders could now be used for the installation. You will soon see why this change was so helpful. With the invaluable help from our production department, we came up with a solution that everyone was comfortable with. Knowing that the scroll was going to arrive to us rolled onto 2 tubes ready for install, we just had to come up with a way to safely transfer it from the crate to the wall. We put together 2 spools using some black iron pipe and fittings that we borrowed from our building and grounds department. Our carpenters cut plywood discs to fit the inside of the tubes, and these were fastened to the pipes with pipe clamps, which allowed for some height adjustment. We took the contraption fastened to plywood planks that were screwed together, modified to rolling carts. We modified rolling carts with plywood tops to receive them. I'm glad we took pictures of all this because it's kind of hard to fully explain it. We carefully measured for the positioning of the spool on the pipes, the distance between the spools, and the distance from the top of the scroll to the top of the cart once in place, to be able to adjust for the proper height on the wall. Fortunately, we'd done all our math right and gotten enough information ahead of time, so it didn't take too much adjustment. Once we knew that we had our spool height right, we were ready to go ahead with the installation. A team of 4 of us had rehearsed the actions and talked through the operation quite a bit beforehand. We positioned the scroll on its 2 tubes horizontally on the table adjacent to our carts. We carefully fed the tubes onto the disc, stood the whole thing up. At this point, everything is attached together as one unit, the scroll, the spools, and the carts. Then we wheel the whole thing into place in front of the wall at the starting place. I should mention now that there was a predetermined starting place for the scroll on the wall. From this point, we just had to make some minor height adjustments. Then we got Gwen set up with a ladder and she began attaching the piece to the wall. Once the first attachment points were established, we uncoupled the 2 rolling carts, 2 of us holding the left cart in place, while the other 2 slowly rolled to the right, working carefully with Gwen to establish a good rhythm. As the textile was unrolled all at arm's length, the exposed magnet tabs were lifted and swung to the inside of the tube. This meant Gwen going up and down the rolling steps frequently. We worked our way to and around the corner. Once again, good planning helped us out. Things smoothly. We finished the right-hand side. Back to the left side, and before we knew it, we were done. For the deinstall, we just reversed the process. This project was a great example of how good, clear communication and open collaboration leads to a very successful outcome.
Just a few to be thanked for our great success, and the conservation team, and both Tim and I thank you for listening.
Wow, those were some incredible installation shots. That was a real undertaking as well. Those magnet systems are great too. And I just want to remind folks that we have some more presentations about magnetic systems tomorrow if you want to join us again. I'm sure we've got some questions, so go ahead and put those in the Q&A as they come up for you. And we're going to bring up our presenters and Sam Hamilton for our last Q&A of the morning.
Hi, Gwen. Wow, that was just mind-blowing. And hi, Tim. Congratulations to you both. What an achievement. Absolutely brilliant. I've got a question. I'm going to start off, and I guess I just want to understand a little bit more about sort of, Gwen, from your perspective, firstly, just about your material choices. Can you talk us through that process and sort of your problem solving and your thinking there? And perhaps when you're talking about that, maybe sort of tell us a little bit about the time frame, because it seems to me like a lot happened, perhaps in a tight timeline, and how did that influence your decision-making process?
Well, the magnetic slat that Small Court makes is sort of, it was really where I started off with as sort of, I guess one would say, like my go-to solution. And because of that design, you don't have to really worry about the weight of the textile. And it's that lip that really supports. And I've used this to hang textiles that are over 30 feet. So you're not really relying on the strength of the magnet so much. And also the whole system is behind the artifact. So that was really my starting place. It was finding the steel, the ferromagnetic gauge that could do the flexing but then straighten up. That finding that was really the critical solution, component to it. And really at the beginning, and Tim can, there were actually two corners. It was really to be an actual room. So you couldn't, it had to be rolled because you couldn't do the standard raising up. And I don't know, Tim, do you have?
I had never dealt with anything like this before. It was a really cool challenge. Fortunately, we were given some pretty strict parameters to work with and kind of had a really good team, a lot of sessions to talk about how this would work out. Really cool. I was really excited as to how it all came together. I mean, we were all really worked well together.
Yeah, and that,
Thank you.
Carol, the painting conservator, was great about sort of insisting that there would be so many conversations, and that was key.
Incredible. Thank you both. We've got a question here from Erin, and it's like, when installing, how did you tip the scrolls up safely from horizontal to vertical, and how heavy were they?
Well, there were four of us doing it. They weren't really that heavy, and we just moved slowly. A lot of times we choose using human power over mechanical power because you can have that much more control over things. So we rehearsed everything several times before we did any of this, so we knew how things were going to be laid out, and just pushed it together and raised it up slowly. It's just that simple.
Thank you. There's some questions here that are related to the weight. And so one's around how heavy was the banner and how many magnets per foot were on the strip. And another one that's pretty much saying how much weight was each magnet holding. So it's all very much about the weight. And if you can talk to us a little bit about that. So
the banner actually, for all those layers, wasn't that heavy. Surprisingly, I think all told, even with the tubes, right, Tim? I don't know.
Yeah, I never got an actual weight on it, but it was not bad at all. It was surprising.
Yeah. So the magnets are secured. They're countersunk shaped, and they're Small Court manufactures this, and on average, the magnets are spaced 6 inches apart. And here's the beauty of the system is that it's that L. Here, and I have it's really this lower edge that holds the steel, holds everything. And it's the magnets that actually keep this from falling forwards. So unlike other systems, and it's especially when you're using any kind of system in a shear direction, calculating the weight of an artifact is really critical. But that's why I particularly, anytime I can use this is what I do. Then you don't have to worry about the weight.
Perfect. Thanks, Gwen. Joseph's asking, is there anything else securing the textile to the wall other than magnets? Because he's saying he loves the magnetic system, but on smaller works, does it become a theft concern?
Well, with this, thank God it was so high. It was 8 feet, but I think it depends. That's where it depends on the particular installation.
Yeah. Yep. So let's go on to the next question. It says, would you mind going through again on how the magnets were attached to the object? I think it's just so good for you to reiterate that, Gwen. I think everyone's just super, super excited about it and want to understand it.
Okay. Well, this was the steel that the 26 gauge, which can flex, unlike what small corp normally butts comes with the slat, and it doesn't flex hardly at all. Plus, it has a powder coated coating on it, which actually, if you bend it too much, that coating does fail or crack. So then I created the tie-vac, and I have very wide rolls of it. And for this, I just folded it over, machine stitched the sleeve, which then the steel slides into. And then just literally like you would with the standard Velcro, this was herringbone stitched all the way through all the layers of the artifact, both along the upper edge as well as the lower edge. And because I had so much, unlike when you use twill tape for Velcro, you end up not having maybe the full width. But so then I could get to the seams between those bands of silk. There were a couple of images of that herringbone. The real challenge, that was not the challenge so much, it was really getting something that's 39 feet with another 39 feet. And, it's not like a quilt where you could just, I don't know. So that was sort of a lot of rolling and unrolling in order to get it together. So it's really the standard, what you would do with Velcro. Anything else? Did I answer
Yeah,
that?
no, that's great. Thank you. I think your demonstration is also very helpful, Gwen. That's wonderful. There's a question here about, do you have any written directions to share? Because people are obviously just super keen. Others have large objects to install and rotate. And so I guess people are just keen to know if you've got any instructions that you can share.
So, yeah, there's a blog post. I have a blog that one could find that talks about this system, because especially when Small Corp first, Van and Molly Woods came up with, we were talking, and this was just so brilliant that, so my blog is inside the Conservator studio. And so there you can, and then, email, of course.
Thanks, Gwen. Tim, we've got some questions for you here. There's one about how many different installation ideas did you work through before deciding on the spools? And do you remember how long it actually took?
Oh, wow. It's been so long and so many things in between. I think that was one of the earliest ideas, and it seemed like a really good one. So we just kind of went with it. And with the help of everybody on our team, sort of got it to where it ended up. The actual installation, I think, Gwen, didn't we do it in the morning, one morning, or it only took us like 2 or 3 hours to do the actual installation. And all of it was in the pre-planning.
I remember an image you sending with a paper cup upside down on a stick.
Yeah.
Really fun. But yeah, the actual doing it didn't take really much time. It was really the talking about what everyone was going to do at every stage that took the longest. And we never went the next step without talking first.
Right.
So that everybody understood what was going on.
This really was a great example of, great communication and enough time ahead, like planning ahead and working through things, talking through things with a great bunch of people. So it was really a group effort. It ended up working out really well.
It's amazing when that happens, when the stars align and you've done all the right planning and all the right people are in the room. It's absolutely magic.
Yeah.
There's another question related to that installation that's about, were you able to rehearse or do a dry run of the install? Or is it just pretty much what you were saying? It's just in this communication and sort of pre-planning.
We did do a dry run without the scroll, obviously, but we, with our carts, and ran through it a bunch of times just to sort of talk through it and make sure that once we had the artifact in front of us that we all knew what was going to happen. So everybody could work in tandem. It was rehearsed, completely rehearsed.
Brilliant. Thank you. Gwen, there's another question here for you from Nancy, and she's saying, could you please repeat how you sourced the thinner gauge steel strip?
Well, so it turns out that there's a local heating. So the fabricator it's a 1-inch strip that is used to bend over heat ducts. And luckily, very close to me is it's a new shop that opened up, and it just was one of those things. I was passing by, they were having lunch, and I was like, here's my trouble. And it was sort of it was circumstantial, but you can see how this was really finding something. We tried tape measures, we tried, just crazy.
Thanks. There's a question here that says, how long was the textile up, and did you find any problems with ventilation or air movement in the gallery?
Oh, I don't think there was any problem at all. I think it was it up for 3 months, something like that. I forget the run of it, but yeah, absolutely no problems at all. It stayed up there. That no problems.
Brilliant.
Some of it was that the way dust travels in galleries often, it was higher than those sorts of air movements. It was slated to be at the Asian Art Museum, but that didn't end up happening. But that had been the plan originally.
Okay, thank you. Monique has a question here that says, how far does the lip on the metal strip at the back project, and how does the textile hang in front of it?
So it's really not very much. And with the added bulk of the tie back, it's really marginal. I know there's some people who are concerned with this like isolated place where the textile might be resting on. But I haven't seen any damage so far. But if one wants to make that narrower space, you can pull the magnets out a little bit, loosen them up and put like cardstock behind or something. So there is some flexibility. But I have specs of this and I can easily send that out. So Monique, I can give you that information.
That's fantastic. Thank you. There's a question here saying, what did the magnets held in the nylon sheer ribbon pouches accomplish?
Oh, that's to keep it from dropping off the tube. So the tabs were necessary to ensure the textile stayed at the height necessary on the tube. And I used cotton twill tape as the tab, and then I stitched a nylon ribbon to create like a little pocket that the magnet slipped into.
And they really stayed in place really well. I mean, that's the tubes didn't spend a whole lot of time vertically, but when they were up, we definitely wanted to make sure they didn't try to start sliding down. And that worked really well.
Great, thank you. There's just a couple of questions here around the Tyvek. So which Tyvek type did you use? And then what could be used as an alternative to Tyvek? Because there's someone here from Argentina who's saying they can't easily source the Tyvek.
Yeah. So yeah, hey Meg, it's just the soft type of Tyvek that that's used for making clothing, protective. So really, you could use anything. The Tyvek, I have started to use just because it's thin, and but you could use cotton, muslin, really anything that works well with your artifact. This for me is sort of a transition from using cotton webbing or twill tape.
Okay, thank you. And we've just got one more question that's very much around the banner itself and asking, was it square? And so as it was unrolling, was it level or did it need adjusting along the way? And how much tolerance was there for those adjustments? It would be really great to understand that.
Well, the whole scroll had been altered and repaired at different times. So there were places along, especially the upper edge, which were a little that dipped down, but nothing for that stance. It really was fairly square, surprisingly. So much of it was painted really in the great scheme of things, so that doesn't change so much over time. What was the other part of that question?
It was just pretty much around that adjustment, and if it wasn't level, then what needed to sort of happen along the way.
Those temporary walls that we created for this project was really helpful because I could make those adjustments while it was all hanging, and so that small sort of, there was like a distance of 2 feet that the hanging was really challenging, and especially to make something horizontal around a curve. That actually was the hardest part. ensuring that the textile fell flat and the tensions that was needed at that particular location, I'll say was the hardest part.
Okay, well, thank you both so much. Again, what an incredible achievement, and congratulations. And I'll hand back over to Jessie. Thank you.
Yeah, there were so many great questions, and if more questions come up, feel free to reach out to our presenters directly or join us in the after party or in Slack to keep chatting, because I know magnets are a big topic of discussion. So thank you for joining us today, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are.